morning. I am Rebekah Ricks, and I'm here at the Homeschool Connection, and this is our weekly vlog, What's Your Brew? And today we're going to be talking a little bit about tutoring and what to look for in a tutor and some signs that maybe you need a tutor or if your child does. So again, I said I'm here at the Homeschool Connection in Winter Haven, Florida with our blog, What's Your Brew? And of course, I have to have my good cup of coffee here to enjoy while we talk to y'all. So for talking about tutoring, sometimes there's a lot going on with that. Hiring a tutor, knowing if your student needs a tutor, is that tutor really helping? Lots and lots of things. And as a general rule, tutoring is pretty expensive. So making sure that it is a huge investment. For a lot of people, it's a big investment. So today, I guess I'm just going to go right in really quick. And we have a couple things we're going to talk about, how to evaluate if your child does need a tutor. Really quickly, we'll go through that, and then we'll go through a couple things to ask your tutor when you are starting, and things that you might want to know about a tutor that you maybe hadn't thought about before. But one thing that you can think about is, does your child, especially an older student, have a hard time studying for a test? A lot of times, students don't know how to study. If you're in a typical classroom, you haven't really been told how to study or taught how to study. And you know what I found? What works for the goose doesn't necessarily work for the gander. I personally have, I don't know, like for me, when I was in college and they had study groups, yeah, let's go to study group, because for me that was social hour. I mean, that was party and spend time with my friends. I don't get anything out of it. I can't study like that. I have to go where there is no one else and no distractions, and it's completely quiet to sit and study. That is how, and really memorize. I am not a great memorizer, so I've had to learn that about myself. I'm also dyslexic, which means it takes me a long time to learn something. So a typical person has a filing cabinet, and when they memorize something, they put it in a filing cabinet. A person with dyslexia doesn't have filing cabinets. It's like they walk into this office and there's papers everywhere. And so in order for me to find that particular paper, I'm gonna have to dig through all these papers. Now the paper's there, and I'll find the paper. It's just gonna take me a little bit longer. It's gonna take me longer to memorize. It's gonna take me longer to dig through and find that paper. So, but once I know where that paper is, I know where that paper is, okay? I pin it to my wall and I remember where it is in my office. So for me to study, it's not quick and easy. Some people can do it different. So really, if you're having difficulty studying for a test, and a lot of times kids won't hit that till high school, or it really depends on if you're in a private school or a public school or what you're doing. You know, typically 4th, 5th, 6th grade, we start having history and science tests, and then they have to learn facts. And some kids don't adjust well to learning those facts or how to learn facts. So sometimes if they're having trouble studying for tests, that could be a few sessions of just getting study techniques, figuring out how they study. I have seen kids who do study sheets. I will spend hours doing a study sheet, but it does me no good because I don't learn from that. Just because I have a study sheet doesn't mean I'm going to memorize what's on the piece of paper. So you kind of have to figure out how that student studies, and you can figure that out at home too, or a tutor can really help with different strategies because they've worked with different kids. What about homework? Is homework a reoccurring battle? That can be for different reasons. I mean, no one likes to do homework, but then homework help can be something that you can give off to a tutor, and they can have that done and help and get it done more efficiently. Another thing is reading. If they're not reading at grade level, a lot of times that's a big sign that they're going to need some help with extra help with reading. Reading is very specialized, and it's very hard to teach reading. If I go to, it's kind of like if you go to a doctor. So right now I'm a little bit pregnant. I'm about 6 months. Yay, made it over halfway. You know, for my baby, I go to an OB. If I have a stomach issue, I go to a gastro doctor. Okay, well, it's kind of like that for teaching. You know, I am a math teacher. I have a degree in advanced math. I like upper math. So I would go to someone who specializes in math to help me with math. But we also have people that there are now more and more reading tutors, or specifically people who have masters and doctorates just in reading, because it's such a advanced and involved subject. So sometimes just because someone is a teacher doesn't mean that they are a reading teacher. I know some reading strategies, but that is not my area of expertise. So especially when you're talking about something about reading, it's really important to make sure you have someone who's an expert to really help with that. Not everyone can do upper math, so you might want someone to stay with your upper math to help specifically with that. So it's really important when you're looking for a tutor that you find out if that's their specialty. Reading is that. And then another thing that sometimes kids need help with, are they having a hard time planning out their academic day? And that's pretty typical. It hits different students at different ages. A lot of times they need to be taught how to use a planner and how to write their assignments down and stay organized. And so sometimes a tutor can really help with that. Another thing is if they're really nervous about a subject, tutors can help. A lot of times I like to, if I know a student is particularly nervous about a subject or scared about it, I like to pre-teach it. So in a tutoring session, I would pre-teach, and then in the next session, they would, when they go to school, they would already kind of see it and know it and have seen it a couple times. So here's the things that that teachers need to know. Tutors need to know from you. When you have found a tutor and you love this person and they're going to work well with your child, then you need to know what motivates your child. I always kind of talk to them and say, what's your thing? Do you do superheroes? Do you do video games? Like, you know, everybody kind of has a thing. I mean, if you want to get to my heart, bring me coffee. If you want to motivate me, you know, to study for something, just promise me some Starbucks and I'll be there for you. Except to help move. I don't know, it might take 2 Starbucks to move. I recently had to help a lot of people move, and moving's the devil. So find out what motivates your child for that. Another thing is, let your teacher know, my child hates school, my child loves school, this is very unlike them to get low grades. Favorite subjects, I would like to find that out. What do you like? I love it when kids are like, what's your favorite subject? Lunch. That's my favorite subject too. I can get down with some lunch. Or PE. A lot of times boys will say PE. Okay, what do you like besides that? What's your second favorite? So their least favorite. Kind of let the tutor know how your child memorizes, or maybe you don't know. How do they memorize things? Is it really hard for them to memorize? Is it easy for them to memorize? And I always ask a kid too, when they come in and tutor, do you want to be here? Do you like being tutored? A lot of times they don't want to come in for tutoring. Sometimes teenagers think they don't need the extra help, and sometimes kids just don't want to do school again. So make sure that tutor really tells the student, you know, I'm here to help you. I want to help you. And if we get this much done, maybe we don't have to all the time, or different things like that. Always try to see, when you first meet a tutor, bring some work that you can show, like what they've been working on or doing. I know it's really hard if they're at a public school, because right now I have kids that come in for math. This is my biggest pet peeve, my biggest like grr with the system, is that I have kids that come into my classroom for Algebra 2, and we don't have books in our county. It's all online, so they don't actually have a textbook. So where are you? Well, here's the notes we have. What are you doing in class? Well, I can log into this and work some problems. So it's really hard to know how to work ahead, how to work with them. It's just, it gets really, if you don't have a textbook or don't give them something to work with, it can get hard. Couple things real fast that you should expect from a tutor. You know, really make sure that they can communicate if they're in a classroom with the classroom teacher. If it's with you, that they communicate with you. Communication is always key, I guess, for any relationship, but especially with a tutor or something, that they're communicating, you're communicating with them. As a parent, let a tutor know what your expectations are. specifically, because is it to just do better, or do you have a specific grade? Let them know your expectations for something. And a lot of times with that too, you can have a targeted goal, like this is my goal for it. And I always like to set goals with students so that we can hit something attainable that they can do. And when you're something else you can expect out of a tutor, remember that most tutors are teachers, and teachers are professionals too. We go to a doctor because they've gone to school and they have that knowledge. We go to a chiropractor for those reasons. We go to a tutor because they're knowledgeable in that subject. And most teachers and tutors are always learning new things, studying, figuring out how they can be better. I know sometimes it's expensive, but think about it this way. I always tell everybody, think of it this way. When you go get your hair done, to get a haircut, you can only go, I particularly am really specific about who I go to get my hair cut. I've gone to the same lady forever. I'm lucky enough to live in the same same area, and she's phenomenal. But every time I get my hair cut, I don't know, it's kind of expensive. It's like I go every 5 or 6 weeks, so once a month or a month and a half. I try to blend it out. It costs me around $100 to go get my hair cut. And really, when I go in and get my hair cut, she's got 2 people and she's doing color on one and cutting hair. But she's great. I would never go to anyone else because she's the best at what she does. She's phenomenal. So we'll pay $100 to get our hair done, but we don't want to spend that kind of money on someone who's a professional just like everybody else. A teacher who's gone to college and has professional experience is really good. So remember, someone that's really good at what they do, they're really worth it, what you have to pay for them too. I know, I balk at paying that much. I'm really cheap. I hate paying money on anything, but I will pay money to get my hair cut because they do a good job. Another thing is, make sure when you're talking to a tutor, make sure that tutor can give you realistic goals. Something very, very realistic. You don't want to promise somebody the moon and then you can't do it. So I always do make sure they test them at the beginning, or do a monthly assessment to make sure that they are progressing, or every other month if you're coming once a week. It's always good to have very specific goals. So an example would be SAT or ACT tutoring. When I do SAT or ACT, I will check where they kind of are across all levels, and I'll say, okay, what did you get on it the first time you took it? Oh, you got a 20. Okay, let's kind of see where you are here. All right, realistically, I'll say, what score do you want? And I'll have kids, I want a 30. Well, a 30 is really hard to get from a 20. 10 points is a huge jump, but 2 or 3 points is a realistic jump. So let's see in a month if we can jump 2 or 3 points. And then after that, we'll see if we can progress. So make sure they have very realistic, you have realistic goals for your child, your tutor has realistic goals for your child, and lots of communication. And hopefully that helped a little bit, just a little more information about things to ask or teaching or tutoring. And so we'll be having next week talking about more strategies that you can use when you're actually teaching. Those are coming up too. And if you look on our events page, on our Facebook page, all of our podcasts for the next, little bit, the next month or so, we're all on there. We're having one on fractions and how to teach multiplication, and we have one coming up on planning out your school year, which is a big one. I just sat down and planned out a school year yesterday, which, don't tell anybody. I know this is strange, but I love doing lesson plans at the beginning of the year, like planning my entire year out. That's one of my favorite things in the whole wide world. I know, don't judge me. And then following it, and then like having the books. I know it's weird. Not everybody's into that. But so we'll be going over all of those things, and hopefully you will check in next week at 9 a.m. Also, if you like what you see, like and share. We're trying to get to 5,000 followers. So share our page and our podcast. Invite your friends to come be followers on our Facebook page. And we look forward to seeing y'all next week on What's Your Brew.